Thank you so much, Seth, for your insightful thoughts. Prime Minister Modi recently announced the introduction of national health IDs for every Indian citizen under the newly launched Digital Health Mission. The Digital Health ID will store patients' personal health records that would help consolidate health data, thus ensuring its interoperability. However, with limited digital infrastructure in the rural areas and absence of a data protection law, this initiative raises a few concerns around inclusion and privacy. How can the government balance these concerns with its ambitious plan to create a digital health infrastructure? How can digital transformation of healthcare facilitate equitable and affordable access to healthcare? We have Chris Gopalakrishnan, chairman at Axela Ventures and co-founder of Infosys, delivering a keynote on India's digital transformation of healthcare. As co-founder of Infosys, he served as its vice chairman from 2011 to 2014 and the CEO and MD from 2007 to 2011. He was elected president of India's Apex Industry Chamber, Confederation of Indian Industry between 2013 and 2014. He served as one of the co-chairs of the World Economic Forum in Davos in January 2014. He serves on the board of several education and research organizations, including the International Institute of Information Technology in Bangalore and the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. He is the chairman of the Vision Group on IT of Karnataka government and the chairman of CII Startup Council. Welcome, Mr. Gopalakrishnan.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Carnegie India, for inviting me to present the National Digital Health Mission and its implementation in India. Let me share my screen at this point. The pandemic has clearly demonstrated the importance of health and importance of making sure that the citizens of India, the 1.3 billion people in India, are able to get access to quality healthcare. And now the main methodology, the main way in which they get health is through digital means. That is, if you want to consult your physician, if you want to connect to a clinic, if you want to connect to a laboratory, etc., it is through teleconsult, it is through digital technology. So this has reinforced the need to provide a digital backbone for the country in order to provide quality healthcare. Second, we also realized that in the future, if you want health records, if you want access to health to be portable, to actually give a choice to the citizen, again, we need a digital infrastructure. And that's the reason why the government, the Prime Minister, announced the National Digital Health Mission on August 15th on our Independence Day. So let's look at the current situation. And of course, this is being addressed by the announcement the government has made. But if you look at the current situation, India has been lagging behind in health outcomes for its population. We have lower life expectancy compared to the global numbers. We have inequity in outcomes across the country. There is a huge gap between the urban population and the rural population. Access in the urban areas are much better. Infant mortality in urban areas is 29 versus 46 in rural areas. So again, there is a difference. And different states have different outcomes. Kerala, better outcomes versus a state like UP. Similarly, when you look at non-communicable diseases, again, we have severe challenges, and this is because the patient approaches a physician, approaches a clinic only when the disease has moved to an advanced stage rather than very early on. And we have communicable diseases, also higher incidence of communicable diseases. There is a huge gap in infrastructure. We require significant more investment in the hospital infrastructure. And then again, the urban-rural divide is very significant. We have gap in availability of staff. What I mean by this is the number of doctors, the number of nurses, the number of healthcare technicians, the number of specialists. And when it comes to specialties like psychiatry, when it comes to neurology, etc., then it becomes even more acute actually. Similarly, the coverage of insurance is very low, and the outpatient medication not covered by existing schemes, out-of-pocket expenses are again very high. And when you get into disease like cancer or rare diseases, then sometimes the insurance does not cover these diseases, pre-existing conditions and things. Access to cutting-edge solutions, again, these are available only in some of the highest super specialty hospitals, limited access. The experience also from primary to secondary to tertiary care is varied. We have suboptimal patient experience across the continuum of care. As I said, the diagnostics is delayed. Often, we are crossing the preventative solution time frame. That means we reach the hospital much later. And in fact, many cases, the patient comes into the emergency situation. They need a long commute, especially when you look at rural patients, etc. There's heavy pressure on tertiary centers, long wait times, poor environment, rushed consultation, because we have lower number of physicians, doctors, etc. per 1,000 people. There are dropouts. When the patient starts seeing improvement, they don't do follow-ups, etc. So the illness may not be completely cured, and it may recur. Absence of availability of medications at the right time. No visibility of choices. So again, it impacts the quality of outcome care, financial impact. For many people, their inpatient care is provided in a government hospital where, again, the infrastructure may not be sufficient to support the patient. The post-intervention care and support is again missing, and with sometimes lower literacy, etc., this becomes a significant challenge in the recuperation period, etc. Many a time, especially if you are in rural areas, if you're poor, incidence of a serious illness causes extreme economic difficulty for the patient, and that's really the reason why the government has announced the National Digital Health Mission, and I firmly believe that this will make a significant difference. So the vision is to create an open digital ecosystem for health. It must support universal health coverage to ensure access, and government subsequently has made other announcements, and I'll talk about that. Create an API-based architecture, which means that people can plug into this into this ecosystem, into this infrastructure, and we can actually leapfrog from a siloed healthcare architecture that we have today to a common framework which allows interoperability and things like that. And of course, whenever we talk about digital infrastructure, we need to think about security, we need to think about confidentiality and privacy of the patient level data. And the vision for National Digital Health Mission encapsulates all these principles and make sure that this is designed from the beginning, designed from day one. The timing is also right, because we have probably one of the cheapest digital infrastructure in the world, powered by mobile technology. India has today one of the lowest cost, widest coverage, very good telecom infrastructure. We have the Aadhaar identity infrastructure, and through that we have also created what is called the Jan Dhan payment and financial inclusion infrastructure. So the underlying let's say preparatory work has already been done in terms of technology and the financial inclusion network. Second, the government has announced Ayushman Bharat, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which is one of the largest programs for inclusion. This provides this is the first step in the direction of universal healthcare. So people who qualify for that now get included in this with significant reimbursement from the government and private sources. So this is the first step in providing a social security network and a universal healthcare infrastructure in the country. And the crisis, as I said, has created the impetus for digital healthcare solutions. This has created a behavior shift. Previous to the crisis, COVID crisis, adoption of telehealth and teleconsult was less than 5%. Now, in certain instances, certain hospitals, if you query them, it is almost 70–80% because there is no other choice. This is the only way in which you can actually see your doctor and things like that. So over the last few months, the last 4 months, we have seen 3x increase in the number of sessions for each user. We have seen 100% increase in adoption by the health tech players and things like that. So how does this whole thing look like? And this is a very busy slide, but such a complex system like this, of course, must have all the layers and all the objectives and the goals incorporated into that, and that's the reason why this is a complex slide. It will create an ecosystem for public and private innovation. So if you look at the bottom half, that's the digital public infrastructure, and it actually comes out of the learnings that India has from creating the financial technology infrastructure in the country. So at the bottom, you will still find the India Stack, the JAM, that I talked about, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile infrastructure. And above that, you have, again, this is part of the public infrastructure, so that this doesn't have to be replicated in the upper layers. So you have registries like doctor, nurse registry, facility registry, which is the service providers, etc. The procedure registry, so that we can over time standardize the procedures. So thinking about the future, we can even look at a layer of diagnostic bots and things like that. I'll come to that. Then you have drug registry and things like that. So you have a set of registries that are common to all the layers above that. Then you have the personal health records. Again, we need to standardize on that, but you will see that when we transition, the system also accounts for other formats in which the health records are present, including even paper records and things like that. So in the personal health records, you have e-prescription, discharge summary, diagnostic reports, and the consent manager, because consent manager has to be there such that the personal health record, which is the digital health record, is secure. The patient has the control over it. The citizen has the control over it and give consent as and when needed. And the third element of this is a common infrastructure for claims, e-claims, including the Ayushman Bharat infrastructure that's already there. And this allows private participants to access Ayushman Bharat patients. Then you have e-vouchers where somebody can actually donate it's like a coupon that you can use to provide health care for somebody. Above that, which is called the augmentation layer, which is basically the engines that take care of some of the automation and things like that, different protocols, converting from one protocol to another, one record format to another record format, ability to integrate with existing systems, because every hospital today, especially the major hospitals, have their own system. So how do we connect to those systems? Then the diagnostic bots and things like that, so that we can think about automation and bringing quality of care through technology in the future, and the matching engine, which allows us to match different services and things like that. When the patient requires multiple services and things like that. Above that, Open Health Services Network, these are interoperable marketplace. Now the private innovation comes in, and this is where through APIs, etc., the private players can actually build these applications. The same principles that has been used to, if you look at the UPI, right, the payment infrastructure, again, that layer created a wave of innovation, and a lot of private players were able to plug into that. So we can think about multiple applications providing telemedicine gateways, so different services can be created, pharmacy, diagnostics, inpatient care, lab infrastructure, all of that can be there, and the preventive care, the treatment care. So different parts of this healthcare infrastructure can plug into that, different hospital management systems, insurance management systems, etc., laboratory information management systems, all can plug in through the private innovation layer through APIs and things like that. Now, this infrastructure has to be maintained. This infrastructure has to allow for training large number of players, etc. And that's one of the reasons why 100+ service providers have joined together to create the Swasth Digital Health Foundation, which on one side is developing this infrastructure, on the other side is also looking at bringing in training of healthcare workers, bringing in the ability to connect small, large, and mid-size service providers into this network. But they need hand-holding. The large service providers can actually figure this out, but the individual physician, the small clinics, etc., will require support in connecting to this. So the guiding principles are, of course, when it comes to patients, voluntary participation on signing up digital health accounts and generating digital health records, that will be voluntary. and an option to opt out after sign up. This follows the PDP bill protocol and things like that, principles from the PDP bill. Privacy and security by design. It's a federated model. There shouldn't be any single point of failure. There shouldn't be a single way, a location where security can be breached, etc. It must connect small and large service providers. It must connect individual doctors. There has to be a step-by-step mechanism in which you connect. They can also leverage the open source code that's there so that they don't need to develop actually any IT capabilities at all. And because it's digital, this can reach out to remote areas and things like wherever telephone connectivity is available, this can reach out to. Seamless portability, international protocols and things like that will play a pivotal role in creating national portability. I talked about existing formats of records being translated to these standard formats and things like that. Comprehensive information, education, communication strategies shall be deployed through appropriate communication channels to empower the end users. And thinking about the future, we must allow for preventive care, wellness centers, mobile screening, etc. And they will also get access provided the patient gives consent to the health records in real-time manner. Again, repeating this, it's a federated architecture. It can in real time accumulate digital records from various sources. Patient privacy is protected through a consent managers and schema level standardization, so that the details are hidden, so that these changes, if need be, can be changed at the back end. And it's that complication is hidden from the service providers as well as from the user. Now, personal data is shared with providers only with consent and with security protocols. It also allows different types of data to be created and shared. So, for example, from the digital health records, you can anonymize and create an anonymized data set that allows for research. Government may be interested in this data again in an anonymous format for public health, etc. It has access to Aadhaar for if there is a need for KYC and things like that, especially when it comes to financial inclusion, insurance, etc. Personal data is stored in health lockers. KYC data is stored in health lockers, and this is the longitudinal personal health record. And then there is the generated data, derived data, intelligence built in, etc., which may be proprietary to a service provider. It may be used for providing digital health services and things like that. So, this is a very comprehensive design and implementation of the National Digital Health Mission vision. As I said, this is very similar to how UP and India Stack was implemented, and the learnings from that. This will go a long way. On one side, providing access to the 1.3 billion Indians. On the other side, innovation will allow existing service providers to plug into the system. And we believe that this is a win-win-win. That is, every stakeholder will benefit from this seamless interoperability all the way from the first point of touch, the consultation, to the digital payment indeed happening, and the patient has the choice to use the services that he or she required. So all the stakeholders, the patients, the clinics, the hospitals, the nursing homes, pharmaceutical companies, the labs, diagnostic centers, the insurance provider, government, health tech companies when it comes to trials or access to anonymized data, etc. All of this has been thought out in this, and we believe that this will enable quality healthcare to be provided for the 1.3 billion Indians at an affordable cost. So affordable patient care, that's the high level goal. And because this infrastructure is there now, there is an interoperability is there. Patient has a choice to go from one service provider to another service provider. So there is fair discovery and differential pricing, because all prices are actually available for patient to make the choice. Lower acquisition costs, again, because of the technology infrastructure, outpatient financing is possible, coupons, etc., e-vouchers are possible, customized insurance credit offerings. So there are lots of possible new generation services which are based on patient's behavior and things. So you can actually create customized insurance based on patient's behavior. So if the patient is actually healthy, follows a regime of eating healthy and things like that, automatically the insurance premium can be reduced. And this has looked at the best practices in other parts of the world, and we've actually brought in those best practices to India through this this infrastructure and things like that. So thank you, and now I will stop sharing and look forward to answering your queries, if any. Okay, there is a first question. A recent announcement suggested that the National Digital Health System, currently in pilot phase in 6 union territories, is ready for nationwide rollout. What infrastructure is needed for nationwide rollout? The 6 union territories are actually rolling out some parts of it, especially the patient registry and things like that, the patient ID creation, etc. So this is piloted now. When will this be rolled out across the country? Because what is provided in the union territories actually could be rolled out elsewhere also. So this will be decided by the National Health Authority, NHA, and they will decide. And they are also working with, this players like this Swasth Digital Health Mission, Digital Health Foundation, to figure out what other parts of the infrastructure need to be completed before nationwide rollout happens. The second question is from Ananta from Tanzania. The next $500 million has become a global bumper sticker. What do you think needs to be done to provide the right kind of health infrastructure for those who can't afford it today? So this is what I covered in my presentation. You need to have a digital infrastructure at the bottom, which is what we call public goods, which allows all players to plug in, which reduces the cost of creating this digital infrastructure for small and medium enterprises, that is small and medium service providers, and allows everybody to plug in. It has to be an inclusive platform. And the vision for National Digital Health Mission is to become that inclusive platform. It is one that gives equal access, that allows access from anywhere, that's digital from day one, that's built using APIs and things like that. I think that's what will allow the next $500 million, or not the next $500 million, actually what I call the 2/3 of the world population, 60% to 65% of the world's population, to get access to quality, affordable healthcare. So the next question is actually on non-personal data, because I chair that committee. I would not like to answer the question on non-personal data here, except say that the National Digital Health Mission has has taken the principles from PDP bill, the Personal Data Protection Bill, and has also taken from the non-personal data protection, non-personal data regulatory frameworks that are in draft today. So they are all considered when this framework is being created. Mary from Jersey. The world has been talking about preparing for a pandemic for decades as a result of hyperglobalization. Yet the philanthropic community has done little to support the endeavor. Do you think this will change post the pandemic? Even during the pandemic, I believe that a lot of support has come from philanthropic organizations in terms of accelerating the quest for a vaccine. Accelerating, for example, in India, providing personal protection equipment for healthcare providers, providers and things like healthcare workers. In terms of making this vaccine available at an affordable price to large parts of the population, large percentage of the population. Again, there is a role the philanthropic community is playing. In healthcare, philanthropic community has been very active actually, but the problems are of such proportion that we need to all work together. So government, the philanthropic community, the NGO sector, the private sector, the for-profit sector, the research community, the academic community, all of us will have to work together in order to look at all aspects. Ultimately, we need to ensure access, we need to ensure affordability, we need to ensure quality, and technology is the solution for many of this actually. And that's the reason why India has come out with this framework, the National Digital Health Mission, and I hope that it will get implemented sooner than later. India's ambitious goals. There's a lot of participation, both from, let's say, volunteer groups, from not-for-profit entities like the Swasth Digital Health Foundation, then the government entities and private sector. Private sector is also participating in working working to take this framework and implementing this framework, connecting their own IT infrastructure, their own systems to the NDHM framework that the government has come up with. So I do not see any other questions on my chat box. Any questions that I can answer? If not, let me again thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share the NDHM framework and the principles and the infrastructure development plan that India has come up with. I believe that it will allow India to leapfrog, and it will allow India to provide quality healthcare, affordable healthcare to 1.3 billion Indians, and it allows public and private participation in making this a reality. Thank you all very much, and let me wish you all a happy new year before I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gopal Krishnan.